know if I can handle it. Hello, everybody. This is Jason Whitney. It is time to talk about what in the world we are doing and why what we're doing is important. Uh, so let me go through that. We are 3Believe, and you are part of this family. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for 8 out of 10 of the people you know having the symptom, sadly, that they do. And I've been fortunate to be a study of brilliant men and women. Being a food scientist and formulator of my own, I stood on the shoulders of these brilliant people, read their clinical studies. There are 20,000, in fact, 20,000 clinical studies that says that metabolic syndrome is a real deal. It's really serious. So serious that 8 out of 10 people have it. And that's not a good thing. As many as 35% of the people have 2 of the symptoms of metabolic syndrome, and that's a worse thing. And so I'm here because of these studies that have been done. These studies that says that it's not a good way for us to live. Our life is shortened. The quality of our life is reduced, and we're just not achieving our optimum selves when we have the symptoms of metabolic syndrome, which is being overweight, having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, elevated glucose levels or type 2 diabetes, and a fatty liver. Those are the main symptoms, but we already know that there are many, hundreds in fact, of sister symptoms. Things like arthritis, sore joints, neuropathy, and vision problems, cognitive thoughts, Alzheimer's disease, skin rashes, fibromyalgia. There are many, many sister symptoms that come out of or attached to, related to metabolic syndrome. And so it is affecting, almost all of us because we're not living as healthy as we should. Now, I'll admit that I have not read all 20,000 clinical studies. I do have some other things to do. I had to formulate a product for you. That took a little bit of time. I only read 600. I read 600 of the 20,000 clinical studies. But I was a little picky. You see, I wanted to focus on studies that also identified a solution for overcoming metabolic syndrome. You see, there's some studies that just say, all right, here's a problem. Let's just take a fatty liver disease, for example. They'll do a study and says, this is what fatty liver disease is. This is how many people it affects. This is all the nasty things can happen if you have a fatty liver. And for those of you that don't know why you should be concerned about fatty liver, cirrhosis of the liver happens after you get fatty liver. So if you don't take care of fatty liver disease in the early stages, it's going to progress to cirrhosis of the liver. And can it kill us? Absolutely. It's a terrible thing. We don't want that to happen. And so this study would, as I was talking about, would talk about those kind of situations. And then there are other studies that talk about how to manage it, how to control it. And then there are studies that talk about how to manage it, control it, but do it without surgery or without medication. They do it by holistic means. Now, when I say holistic, I remember years ago, before I was a food scientist, I kind of thought holistic meant, someone putting on, that feathered hat and, had beads around their neck, and someone beating a drum in the background and then dancing around and making noises, kind of witch doctor type stuff. Well, that's not the case at all. Holistic just means the absence of medication and surgery, a natural way of overcoming whatever problem that we have. And that is, that's a better way to be. It's one that's going to come without side effects, and one that's going to come without the added cost. Now, every single medication has a negative side effect. Every single one. And I will talk about in a video that I'm producing that you'll be able to watch and use and tell your friends that my goal, one of my goals, is to never have you take medications ever again if we can help it. If we can overcome your symptom by holistic whole food treatment, that is my goal, is to have you get off your medications entirely. Why? Well, because I am traumatized by two main statistics. It is, without exaggeration, it is constantly on my mind every day. And one of those statistics is that 340 people die every single day. Some might say that's not a lot. I think it is. I think it's a lot. 340 people die every day from following the the correct prescribed instructions of the medications that they were given. This was not an overdose. They didn't take more than they were supposed to, and they didn't take it illegally. We're not talking about illicit drugs, illegal drugs. We're talking about they went to their doctor, they got a medication that their doctor researched and said, this is what you should take, and then they took it just exactly as they were told to take it, and 340 people are dying every single day because of that. That's one of the side effects that's undesirable. Now, there's other side effects that you can get from medication that don't kill you or don't kill you right away, right? But you're going to get some side effect from a medication. My goal is to get you off it completely so you don't have any side effects. The other statistic that scares me to death is that 3 people die every single minute. If you think about that, that's over 1.5 million people a year die from the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. This is completely preventable. We're not talking about old age. We're not talking about accidents on the highway. Some things that you just can't prevent, they're going to happen. We're all going to die at some point. I mean, we got to face it. I keep telling my kids and my wife, I'm going to outlive them all. But I don't say I'm going to live forever. And at least not in this mortal body. Maybe when they get cryogenics together, I can freeze myself or freeze my brain and I'll come back in a couple of centuries. But aside from that, we're going to die at some point. But I'd much rather die and hand this body in to my maker and said, look, I'm sorry it's so wore out, but I worked this body and I lived it for 100 years. And I had fun in it, and I did good work in it. And look, it served me right up to the day my heart and soul stopped working, right? Rather than being kept sick for 10 years or 20 years of my life. That's what studies are finding, that we are, one of the reasons why we're living longer than we did a century ago is because the medications are just keeping us alive longer, not increasing the quality of our life. That's a rude awakening. We're kept alive inside of our sickness in too many situations. And so that's my goal, is to help you be aware of some of the things that I've come across, like metabolic syndrome, and that it affects so many of the people, and that it is completely 100% preventable. You can avoid it simply by reversing how you got it in the first place. How did you get it? You didn't get it through heredity. You didn't get it through a stroke of bad luck. You didn't get it because you kicked your cat or you walked under a ladder, broke a mirror. None of those bad luck things. You got it by eating. Well, you got to eat to stay alive, but it was your macro balance that you ate. Macro balancing is kind of a new term that's being used, but it doesn't have one definition. It's kind of like religion. Religion can be followed in many, many different ways. Some believe in this God, and some believe in this thing. Some believe in that principle of the gospel. But they're not all the same. And macro balancing is like that. Meaning, macro balancing quite simply is saying this. You have three macronutrients. You have proteins, you have carbohydrates, and you have fats. Balancing those three items at the proper ratio will give you a certain quality of life. It'll give you a certain energy factor, and it'll give you a certain benefits and liabilities, right? And so we have one notion of macro balancing as put out by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and by some other popular institutions, saying that you should eat. You've seen that new food plate? It was replaced by the previous food pyramid. That was replaced a couple of years ago with the food plate. And so a portion of your plate would be carbohydrates and a portion of the plates would be proteins and fats and so on, right? Well, on this food plate, if you were to just Google that on your internet, you'll find that they recommend 65% of your plate, meaning of the calories that you're getting on a daily basis at every meal, 60 to 65% of it should be coming from carbohydrates. And they make it sound pretty harmless. It should come from sources. And they're not telling you should eat Snickers bars and drink soda pop. No, they're not saying that. But what they're saying is that you should have it in wholesome things like oats and whole grains and fresh fruit, things like that. Well, what in the world is wrong with that? That's something that Mother Nature made too, right? Well, the answer is yes, and the answer is no. Not all of those foods are man-made, or should I mean natural. Some of them have man-made fingerprints on it. For example, our grains, our flours, let's take oats, for example, are not the same as that was a century ago. A century ago, you didn't have instant oatmeal that can be made in literally 30 seconds in the microwave. Okay, they have processed that grain to be faster. Well, how did they do that? The same way they did it with rice. You didn't used to be able to. It took you 20 minutes, 25 minutes to cook rice. To cook wheat, it took longer, right? And so how did they do it? They polished it. They took off some of those vital nutrients. They polished the fiber out of it. They polished much of the protein off of it. And so they essentially turned a complex carbohydrate into mostly a refined carbohydrate or a simple carb. It is more like sugar than it is like a complex carb. And that's why they're not the same. And so in that food chart, it seems that it's harmless and it sounds wholesome. And yet, that food plate is what most people are following. And so you have the average American consuming over 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. Well, what does that mean? 400, so what? Well, that's too much. It's way, way too much. Let me give you a perspective. Let's just walk you down the path of history for a second. Right now, we have 80% of the population in the United States that has at least one of the symptoms of metabolic syndrome, all right? What does that mean? That means they're either overweight, 79% of the people are overweight. There's almost the 80% right there. And so when I say 80%, by the way, I should just show it's actually higher than that. If I really gave you the percentage, you wouldn't believe me. It's too high. But let me just give you why I say that. 79%, as reported by the CDC and the World Health Organization, of the Americans are overweight. 34% have high blood pressure. 32% have high cholesterol. Okay, wait a minute. 80%, 32. Okay, that's over 80% of the entire population, just those three, right? And then you have about 15%, just under 15% that are diabetic, right? Elevated glucose levels. Either diagnosed or not diagnosed diabetic. And then you have, depending on the age group, you have up to 31% of the population that has a fatty liver. Wow. So it's over 80% of our population has at least one of the symptoms. of metabolic syndrome, and too many have more than one. All right, so let's get back to it. You go back to the 60s, all right, and you look at the food chart. Uh, Back then, it was not known as the food pyramid. It was just a recommendation. But the recommendation that they gave, if you go back, and I have a presentation that actually takes it through the 6 changes that the government made to the food pyramid, and what year they did it, and how much they increased it, as far as the recommendations, as it related to the amount of carbohydrates. Okay, so back when they first made the recommendation, it was about 22 to 25% of your diet was supposed to be carbohydrates. Today they're recommending 60 to 65%. Okay, all right, let's just set that aside for a second. Back in the 60s, we didn't have 79% of people being overweight, and nor did we have 15% were diabetic, or 34% had high blood pressure, and 31% had high cholesterol. What you'll find is about 10 years after each of the 6 changes that the government made to our food pyramid, increasing the amount of recommended carbohydrates in our diet, you saw a national uptick of each one of those categories I just gave: weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, the works. Every single one of those categories increased, no more. In case of diabetes, it increased faster because how it affects the cellular tissue. So what does that tell you? Went from 25, 23% to 60, 65% in the amount of carbohydrates, and you'll see that the amount of symptoms of metabolic syndrome increased by almost exactly the same percentages that each time they made the increase. If that doesn't, you don't have to be a scientist to know that there's a correlation there, but it continues. And so when I talk about macro balancing, I'm talking about the one that'll keep you out of the realm of having metabolic syndrome. And that is, you were not made to have that many carbohydrates. You can have them every once in a while. You can have them when you go to a birthday party. You can go have them when you go on vacation. For heaven's sakes, what do we have right around the corner? We have Thanksgiving, which is Thanks Carbohydrates Day, right? I mean, think about it. What? Let's just think about all the yummy things we have on Thanksgiving that is majority being carbohydrates. Well, stuffing is one of them. Homemade rolls, pecan pie, all the pies, glazed yams, mashed potatoes. The list goes on. You got to have those Rice Krispie squares too, because they're just absolutely delicious. Because I make, we'll leave that for another time. Meals like that are permissible if you want to have an optimum life of health. It's just that you can't eat like that on a meal in, meal out, day by day basis. Your body was built, your liver, your digestive system, your kidneys were built to be able to handle this extra flood of carbohydrates when you have a Thanksgiving dinner. So go ahead and eat it. But you go right back to your phase 1 the day after. This is a recommendation that I give people. If you're in phase 1, all right, you have to just choose your battles. I recommend saying, look, if you've just started the protocol, phase 1, meaning you're having 3 shakes a day and 1 regular meal a day, and you just started this month, and you got Thanksgiving coming around. Well, for heaven's sakes, how many birthdays and Thanksgiving, how many holiday dinners are you going to have in a year? You can afford to miss a couple. It's not going to kill you. And there's nothing against you having a Thanksgiving dinner any other day. There's restaurants all over the place that'll give you a turkey dinner. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to comply with that dinner. That's my recommendation in phase 1. But if you're going to cave in, this is what you do. You take the 3Believe 3B plus pills. Let's see if I have some. My new office is completely set up, but I don't see any right here. Take those before the meal. That'll block much of the carbohydrates and fats that the wrong kind of fats that you're going to get in your meal. And then the next day, just hop back on the protocol. Just go back on starting all over again. Or not all over. Just go back to doing it the way you're supposed to do it. Now, if you're in phase 4, this is my recommendation. You're going to be surprised at how that Thanksgiving dinner isn't going to make you feel wonderful. It's going to taste good going down, but after it's in your system for a couple hours, your body's going to go, ugh, that was a little too much. I'm not used to that much carbohydrates. That's your first signal that your body really doesn't like having that many carbs in the first place. Okay, off my soapbox for now. If you're in phase 4, the day after Thanksgiving, do a phase 1 for one day. Just clean your system out. That'll drop your glucose levels, your insulin levels will come back down. You'll be amazed at how fast you'll snap back to feeling great. Okay, so try that. That's the Thanksgiving suggestion update that I give you. So our program is designed to just reverse the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. How'd you get it? By eating your way to it. How are you going to get out of it? By doing the same thing. By eating your way out of it. Not by taking medications. By eating food. All we're going to do is just do it at the right kind of ratio of macro balancing. In phase 1, we drop it clear down to about 5% of your total caloric intake is 5% of your calories. That's about less than 20 grams of carbs. So you're dropping from 400 down to 20. Can you survive? Is that healthy? Absolutely. That's part of what those 20,000 studies were talking about, that it's healthy. Not only is it safe, but your body was built to go from a higher carbohydrate to no carbs, in fact, and it will survive just fine. Right? Our program is a ketogenic diet. Don't let anyone tell you, and there's lots of news out there, but watch them back it up with clinical study. They don't. Okay? Is that a ketogenic diet is unsafe? It's not. That's not unsafe at all. It's extremely safe. In fact, if your body could not go into ketosis, if it was, your body would actually die, because after about 10 hours, 12 hours without food, if your body could not go into a state of or a form of ketosis, your body would start to shut down. It's the way that we were built. We're supposed to go from an insulin production, that's higher levels of carbs, down into a lower amount or no carbs, which is a glucagon production. Now, if you go out there and do your research, you'll find that there are a list of diseases that were linked directly to having too much insulin in your body. Where do you find that with glucagon? Now, there is a genetic disorder of having too much, but the percentage is 1/100% of the population. It's just a genetic disorder. But you don't see it out there. One of your friends, when's the last time you had a friend say, yeah, I'm type 2 diabetic, I'm insulin resistant? You hear it all the time. When have you ever heard one of your friends say, yeah, I'm glucagon resistant, I can't handle it? It doesn't exist. It's not a problem. They're two master hormones, insulin and glucagon, but they don't have the same effect on your body. All right? You can live just fine without any carbohydrates at all. All right? I'm not saying that you should go completely, but you could. You could, and you'd live just fine with it. There are several segments of people, nationalities, cultures that have lived without any carbohydrates. The Inuits, the Eskimos, have lived without, I don't know if you've noticed, but up there where they're living, they don't have a lot of fields of grain and fruit trees up there. They don't have carbohydrates. They eat meat and whale blubber, and so they don't have the problems that we have with heart disease and obesity, and the list goes on. So that's what we're doing, and that's my passion. And I'm asking you to adopt some of it, just even for your own sake of health and wellness. So let me give you an example of a woman. I've been reading some testimonies from Emma Smith, and she gave, thank you so much, Emma. I love, truly, getting these updates. It just thrills me. She gave an update. Where's she at? Now, I'm not going to read all the testimonies, but just to kind of tell you, she started back let me kind of rehearse here. She started in January 23rd of this year. So January 23rd of 2017, she started our program, our diet, the 3Believe diet. And prior to that, she had several issues with her eyes, and she had some cancer growth. And she had surgery in October of 16. So she had surgery in October, and then she started the diet in January. Okay? So this is from Emma Smith. Good news. Tuesday, 11/7. That was just 2 days ago. I had a 3-month checkup appointment with my dermatologist, and my next appointment is now 6 months away, not 3 months. No growing or new cancer, double exclamation point. I am feeling very good thanks to 3Believe. My cancer surgery was in October 2016. I started 3Believe January 23rd, 2017. So, short and sweet. She's just given us an update. Congratulations, Emma. Good work. Love to see that as a great example. I want to just kind of tell everybody, you've noticed if you're on the webinar, you've noticed that my background is a little bit different here. We're in our new building. When it's all set up and all the contractors are done, I'll do a little video camera, and I'll walk you through the place, show you why we move. Why do we move? Well, we need a bigger space. You guys are doing great work. We're growing, and we needed more room. And so this was better suited for us, had more electrical power for us, bigger transformers, more square footage. We can, it was just better. My video, when I show it to you, will explain why. And so we're still a little bit, we are in production. Now we have had, so if you placed your order last week, any of you, most all of those shipped on Monday. Matter of fact, let me think here. I'm just reading the update from the office. It looks like we're caught up on Tuesday. So we are caught up on all orders, shipped those out. There were some orders, and still that if your meal replacement powder, okay, this right here, this the CMR, and your oil order was also attached to some smart foods like muffins or rolls or something. We did run out of that while our move because of the construction delays, and so we didn't ship it because it's all one order. If you're going to run out of your meal replacement, please let us know, and we will ship your order without the smart foods, and we'll ship the smart foods later. It's okay to go without smart foods. Did you just hear that scream of no in the universe? I know. It's fine to go without smart foods. It will not hurt you to go without for a few days. But you can't go without your meal replacement on a daily basis. So if you're going to run out of the meal powder or the oil, let us know, and we'll ship that, and we'll just follow it up with the smart foods when we are caught up, because we are a little behind on some of the muffins. I don't know exactly which ones, but we'll be caught up by Friday or Monday. So this coming Friday or Monday, we should all be caught up. So that's good. Now, you know me. I'm a food scientist. That means I love numbers. I love statistics. And I try not to bore you with them, but I'm going to give you a little bit here because it's concerning to me. Someone gave me a report that found that 26 people last month in October ordered a phase 4 product and ordered no oil. They didn't order any of this right here. No, none of the omega oil. And 29 people that ordered the Pro 6 didn't order the oil. All right. Now, for those of you that know who those people are, or if heaven forbid, if you are one of those people, I'm going to lovingly put you over my knee and scold you just a little bit. The meal replacement protocol that I'm talking about, the studies that we did, the 600 studies that I personally read to put together that formula right there that gives the kind of results that Emma just gave you an example of, okay, is based on combining it with our omega oil. Now, our oil is not the same as everybody's oil. And I'm not saying that just to sell our oil. If you can find another oil that has the same ingredients that this does, and it's cheaper, and it's the same quality, buy it. But here's what the requirement has to be. It has to be plant-based. It has to be organic. It has to be cold pressed. Okay? It has to have at least 2.5 times more omega-3 to the amount of omega-6 that's in there, and a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-9. All right? Now, what that means is that right now in America, we get about 23 times more omega-6 than we're supposed to. Now, you've heard me talk about that there's a lot of good things in life, but too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing. I joke with my clients that kissing is a wonderful thing. What a great, great way of communicating, right? But kissing at 65 miles an hour on the freeway, driving down the motorway, is not a good thing. It's dangerous, right? You can't be doing it all the time. And like omega-6 in our food, omega-6 is a less expensive oil than omega-3. It's just the way that it is. And so food production, manufacturing facilities will use, when they're using fats and oils, they'll use omega-6 and less omega-3. And when you get that much, it causes a problem in your body. It's not healthy. It actually causes health risks. And so the reason why I have so much omega-3 is to balance out your heavy consumption of your omega-6. And so that's why it is of that ratio. And omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9s, and including omega-7s, they do different things at the cellular level. Let me give you an example. Omega-6 is a inflammational base. One of the things, it does many things, but it will produce more, or it's a precursor, it's a trigger to inflammation in your body. Where omega-3 is the opposite. It's an antagonist. It fights against. It has the opposite effect of inflammation. Now there's a whole list of things, but there's just one of the differences in omega-6 and omega-3. And if you're getting 23 times more than you are omega-3, that's not a good thing, because if you've read, and if you do, you can see that inflammational diseases is one of the leading causes of why people are having the ailments that they are. And that's not good. So if you can find another oil at those same kind of numbers and it's cheaper, then buy it. I don't think you can. Oh, let me tell one more thing, is that ours has a clinically proven liver cleanse in it that will defat your liver. You take that and it'll defat a liver that's all 35-40% fat. You're only supposed to have 5% by weight fat. It'll defat your liver in 12 weeks. Nobody else's oil will do that. And so there's my loving little talk about you got to have the oil. You got to have it. Should be in every one of your shakes. The meal is not complete without it. You got to include it in there. Please, please take it. And for those of you that are taking capsules, 1 tablespoon of my liquid oil is equivalent to 14 of those great big capsules. Holy cow, that's not only expensive, but that's a lot of capsules. And you got to take at least 1 tablespoon per shake every day. So if you're on a phase 1, you're taking 14 times 3. Wow. 42 capsules a day? That's a lot and very expensive. A lot more than our oil. All right. Enough about the scolding. I want to talk about, in kind of a follow-up of what I've been talking, I've been doing some research on these videos. We're shooting these videos so that you can be educated, so you can pass it on to your friends and family, because some of the science can get a little highbrow and get a little confusing. And so if you have a video to pass it on, it's a great way to pass the information, right? Good. It's a great way to market. And so I'm producing some marketing videos for you. Here's one in some of the research that we've done. In the Harvard Business School, which is a very well-respected school for teaching some of our titans of business, of commerce, have studied at this fine school, Harvard Business School. They had identified through their research 5 elements that make the perfect business. Now they say that if you can just get 2 out of those 5, you can have a wildly successful business, right? Here's the 5 things. They need, whatever that product or service is in that business, it needs to be able to be adopted into a person's life, right? The majority, the masses of the people. For example, Elon Musk, right? He's starting a business where he can shoot people on his rocket ship up to the moon and eventually to Mars and back, right? Well, is that going to be the masses? No, it's going to be the people that can afford a $250,000 ticket ride. Well, that's not most of us, right? So that's not the best business model. You need something that most people can adopt financially, but also something that they can adopt in their lifestyle. 2, it has to be a product that is reusable. They call it consumable. It's something that you make once and they only need to buy 1 or 2 in their entire life. Well, it's not horrible, but it's not the best. So they recommend it to be consumable. Next, the consumer needs to feel something. They need to recognize that when they use this product or this service, they see a difference. They see an improvement, right? And next, they have to have a perception that there's value there. Now, they don't have to be correct. They could be terrible at math, but they have to have a perceived value that it's worth it, is the bottom line. And then the last is that it has to be something that technology or fad or recessions don't have any effect on. All right, so let's back up on what the business of the 3Believe is. How well do we do with those 5 categories? And remember, they say that you only need 2 to have a wildly successful business. Well, can people adopt food into their life? And is it a staple item? Yeah, and that's definitely, we've got 1. Is it consumable? Is it something that they use and then it's gone and they got to buy more to use it again? Well, food is definitely a consumable item, right? 3, the consumer feels that when they eat our food, they feel and see a difference. Here, the testimony that I gave of Emma, she definitely sees that. She said that thank goodness that her dermatologist told her that there's no more new cancer growth. And that she feels very, very good. And she says thank you to 3Believe that she's of the level of health that she is. So she's feeling a difference, right? People that have lost 50 and 60 pounds, They are definitely feeling something. Perceived value. Well, people are spending on average $21.51 a day on food somewhere. That's what the studies are saying. And so our foods at less than $3.57 a meal, you can have 3-4 of those a day, and you still come out ahead, right? So it's has a very strong perceived value. And then the last one is it recession proof? Well, food is recession proof. Technology can't replace it. We're not going to be able to buy a computer chip and no longer be hungry, right? And food is not a fad. Now, there's certain kinds of foods that are faddish, right? Types of diets will be faddish, but when you're talking about food base, which is ours is, it's fad proof. So 2 out of 5 wildly successful. Ours has 5 out of 5. Imagine what you can do with such a number. That's pretty amazing. So let's go a little bit farther with this study that I found. With the numbers that you have and the way that our program is you could make $3.45 every day from the people that you introduce that is in a phase 1 protocol. $3.45. Okay, that $3.45, if you introduce one person, isn't going to get you a ticket on that spaceship to the moon, right? But the Columbia College studied and said that we know on average in America 600 people. We know 600 people. Now, if we had 80% of those people that have metabolic syndrome, right, taking our food product, your 3Believe, that would be $755,000 that you're making a year. That's a lot of money. That's more money than anyone needs. But I admit that's a little aggressive. Let's be a little more conservative, right? So let me be a little more conservative in my analysis, all right? So the study from Columbia College also said that we know 290 people out of that 600 that we know on a first name basis. We know them. We don't know, just recognize them by their look. Can't remember the name, but we know them by their first name, so we know them pretty well. Let's also be super conservative from there, that only 30% of those people eat food or have the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. So we're really narrowing this down. You making $3.45, that's $109,555 a year. That's not too bad for being ultra conservative. So what's going to make the difference from where you are now to those kind of numbers? You need to tell people about it. You don't have a lack of people that are interested or that have the issue at hand or that eat food. You have only possibly the issue of just talking about it, sharing what it can do, and then telling them to do the same thing. It's really that simple. We have the testimonies here. You see the results here. The price is right. The rewards are great. Those are the recommendations that I have. Now, we're going to be coming out with a promotion. We came out with one last month, and it was very successful, and a lot of you took advantage of it. We're going to come out with another one this next time, and I'm not going to tell you the details. We're still working out the little details to make it exciting, but it's pretty cool. I want to tell you that it will motivate you, but I recommend that you get started. Get ready to start telling people about what wonderful secret that you have here. It will save lives. It will definitely improve the quality of their life, and it will definitely improve the quality of your financial situation. And there is nothing bad about any of those wonderful things. So I appreciate you. I applaud your efforts. Emma, I'm grateful for your testimony. For all of you that have also received wonderful benefits that I haven't heard from yet, I applaud your efforts. Please send them in. Let's share them. Let's talk about it. And I think we're about done here. Let me reach out and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Merv, are you out there?
I'm here.
All right, sir.
You might mention the background. This is not just a new program. You've been working with doctors and medical clinics. You might just make a few comments about how you got to where we are now. We just made this available to the general public here since January 1st, but this is not a new venture for you, so you might make a comment about that if you would.
So a little bit of history. We started 9 years ago, almost 10 years. Coming up this spring, it'll be 10 years that we've been doing this. If we've been doing it for 10 years, how come you haven't heard about us? Well, because we focused on dealing directly with doctors, clinics and hospitals that treat specifically people that have heart disease or diabetes or obesity, the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. And because our program is so successful, we would provide the training to the doctors and their staff, provide the products to them, and then they would in turn provide it to their clients. Hundreds of thousands of people have benefited from this program. Now, it's been under a different name. That's why you don't recognize the 3Believe. And then I thought, to be honest with you, the reason why I wanted to make this available in a direct consumer through you people out there sharing it with your friends and loved ones, is because I got the report last year, and I get it every year, of how many people are seeing their doctor on an annual basis at least one time. And this year it dropped below 25%. Now, going back to making a good business decision, there's over 1 million doctors, and there's still millions and millions and millions of people that go and see their doctor and their clinic and their hospitals, right? But that's my biggest concern is that if we're marketing to doctors and they're the ones that are telling their patients about our program, and we don't have every doctor, we have a lot, but we don't have every doctor, every clinic, every hospital, that means that there's millions of people out there that are not getting the news of the solutions that we have. And it goes back to those two statistics that terrify me every day. 340 people die every day because of the medications. Well, much of those medications are because they have the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. And if they were on a program like ours, it's possible we could eliminate all or most of those 340 deaths from just the negative side effect of taking medications. And then let's go back to the bigger number of 1.5 million people, 3 people every minute that's dying from metabolic syndrome. That's preventable. That is the reason why we had to bring it out and make it available to you, because it's just news that has to be spread. So we've been around for almost a decade. We've got all our clinical studies, all our research good. We're doing new work all the time and coming out with new products, but you're right. We've been around for quite a while. I think that's about it.
Any other questions, anybody? Anybody? Any questions?
Remember, those of you that are getting your shakes without the oil, that blend of the 2.5 times to omega-3 to omega-6 is pertinent. Don't order your shakes without the oil. And thank you very, very much for your support. And call in or write in to support@3believe.com if you have any questions.
I've got a comment and a quick question.
Sure.
Because of one of your last calls, I started taking more of the omega oil because you said it wouldn't hurt the body to take extra. So I used to take an extra pump or two. And the other, this is the question kind of, you didn't make any reference tonight about the ashwagandha pills that some people might want to know about that's successfully reduced the size of tumors.
Okay, yes, just a little bit about the oil. I do make, and in our videos, our training videos, you'll see recommendations. The oil, extra oil, is there for certain situations. For example, in the shakes, I tell you to take 2 pumps minimum per shake. So if you're on phase 1, that would be 6 pumps. That would be 3 tablespoons. Well, I take 5 to 6 regularly, and then if I'm working out extra hard, or if I'm feeling a little run down, I'll take 8 to 10 pumps per shake. That's where I get my extra energy from, because I'm fat adaptive. I don't put on the extra weight. It's not bad for my body. One of the unique benefits from omega oils that your body doesn't have a very good ability to store extra omega fats, essential fatty acids. Because of its structure, it's not like other saturated fats or animal fats that your body will store it for future use. If you have more than what you need, more than what your cells need to have, then it just eliminates it along with your bowel movement. And that's just not the case with other fats. Plus, your body will burn off. It takes more energy, caloric energy, to burn 1 gram of fat than it gets from it. So you're going to get 9 calories when you break down a gram of fat, but it takes 13 body calories to break that 9 that you get. So you're at a negative balance there. So that's why morbidly obese individuals will lose more body fat by taking more omega fat versus someone that took less or didn't take any at all. And then there's a list of other reasons why it's great. The ashwagandha is in the meal replacement formula in every single dose. I put a clinical dose amount in here, and ashwagandha has been found to do many, many things. Now, I want to be careful on that it will cure cancer or it will dissolve tumors. However, there have been some studies specifically talking about tumors that it has stopped and reduced the size of tumors by taking ashwagandha. Now, not any ashwagandha is going to work. You want to have the effective chemical that's in ashwagandha, natural chemical, and most are sitting at less than 1%. Ours sits at between 28 and 30% of the ratio, which is the highest of anybody's in the world. It's not a product that I make. It's one that we buy. We buy it from India. The company that makes it has a patent on it. It's the only one that's taken from a non-solvent extraction process, again, which is a plus. And so you're getting all the good parts of the ashwagandha. The stuff that I see being sold on the internet is sadly just the wrong form of ashwagandha, and if it has any at all, it has very, very low ratios. Ashwagandha is we will be having the capsules, but just now that we're in the new building, you'll be able to take more. I take more when I'm feeling extra stress or I need a little extra sleep that night. But the ashwagandha is a wonderful, wonderful supplement. So again, thank you for your questions. We try to field 3. Is there anybody else out there that has a question that I can answer?
Anybody?
All right. Well, thank you again. God bless you all. Thank you for your prayers and your support. And remember, tell people if you don't do it to benefit your financial situation, do it just for them. Tell them about it just so that their life can be improved. Thank you, and God bless you all.
God bless you.
Good call. God bless you.
Good night, Chet. Good night, David.
Well, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good call.
Good night.